All
You're
right,
so very
everybody,
welcome.
we are going to get going with our last but very not least speaker of the day, who is Christopher Vecchia. He's a strategic multimedia sales leader at iHeartMedia. He has over 20 years of experience across radio, television, and digital advertising, and he's also an Air Force veteran. So we really appreciate today, Chris. Could you start just telling us how you got to where you are in your career from your Air Force career?
Well, look, first, let me say that the greatest job I ever had was getting to fix F-15s on the flight line at Tyndall Air Force Base on the Panhandle of Florida versus schlepping advertising for iHeart.
I couldn't complain about being down in Florida either.
So, essentially, when I was in the Air Force, I had was looking at a couple of different options to go to college because I enlisted in the Air Force in '87 and was on a delayed entry program for 10 months and then went active duty in '88. So from '88 to '92, as I was exploring options as to what I would do after the Air Force, I started going to school at a satellite campus of FSU that was actually on campus at Tyndall Air Force Base in Florida. So I managed to finish 1 year of college while being active duty for 4 years. So there wasn't a heck of a lot of time to take classes, but I was able to do that. And then I went, I don't even know if it's called the same thing when you transition from active duty to the Guard. Back then it was called Palace Chase. So I went from active duty to the Massachusetts Air National Guard. They also had F-15s at the time, so it was kind of a seamless transition. I was already trained active duty, and then I finished my three remaining years at UMass. But when I went back home to Massachusetts, and I majored in management with a concentration in marketing, and kind of found my way into the advertising and marketing industry, doing different things, and then settled into an advertising executive career for splitting time between radio and television. And now it's since with the advent of streaming and multiple ways everybody consumes their audio and video content, it's now just a media company, and we're basically working with clients and selling them advertising on pretty much all platforms.
Yeah, yeah, great story, Chris. How did you originally get into marketing? What made you want to get your degree in that world?
Um, I knew I wanted to be able to do something with business. So I was going, I went to college of management for business management, and doing business and operating businesses and possibly owning my own business was of interest. But when I was in there, I kind of gravitated towards marketing because the bottom line is, no matter what type of business you have, no matter what type of business you're looking at, you need to be able to sell it. So I looked at kind of the most important part of the overall business in terms of generating revenue, and then kind of segued it into advertising that way.
Yeah, yeah. I'd love for anybody, if anybody in here is interested in marketing or advertising, put a one in the chat. I'd be curious to see how much interest in that world we have in here. For somebody in here who maybe didn't do that position in the military, but they really want to get into it now, as they're exiting the military, what's a good place for them to start?
Do you mean somebody who wasn't working in advertising before, while they
Yeah,
were in the
yeah,
military, and how to get into it?
yeah.
I would say that definitely education is the first step. Although I have to admit, it's not we're not rocket scientists here in the advertising world, but it's obviously a good idea to get your education. But I would say that it's not 100% necessary if you have some good business acumen and have some a skill set that can allow you to sell. But education first, and then there's so many different avenues now if you want to get into advertising and marketing. The world changed as it relates to the opportunities in advertising and marketing once media properties figured out how to capitalize on the internet and digital platforms to offer viable opportunities other than traditional traditional media platforms like traditional TV or traditional radio. Now you can consume it any way you want digitally on your phones, tablets, computers, smart TVs. So there's so many more opportunities now, and there's so much more competition as well. So to get into it, I would do my research about the advertising industry in general. Definitely, schooling is going to help tremendously, and then networking. It's all about networking, kind of like what we're doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. We're building our network from within in here. Somebody mentioned in the chat that they've been in the recruiting side on the military for 12 years. Does that experience look good on a resume? And if so, how would they transfer that experience to make it more applicable to the civilian world on the resume?
Yes, actually, that is a very good question, and it actually does help tremendously. And let me give you a perfect example. I was a manager at CBS in Boston for a news radio station called WBZ for several years, and a an Army recruiter out of the clear blue called me, and this was 2 years before he was getting out of the Army. And he called me 2 years because he was prepping to get out of the Army and hit the ground running because he wanted to get into a sales job because he loved the recruitment angle of the military. And obviously, that's a very tough sales pitch in many instances, and you have to have a skill set to recruit people into the military. So not only was he preparing 2 years in advance before he left, but so I hired him, and he started from the ground floor and did very well, and then got out of CBS, started his own advertising agency, and ended up getting a big contract with Massport, which is the company that oversees Logan Airport advertising and all the advertising at South Station, which is a major train station here in Boston. And his name is Sylvester Ryan. You can look him up on the internet. He's had a very long, successful career in advertising after being a top-notch recruiter in the Army for over 20 years.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. What are some common mistakes that you're seeing veterans make with their resumes and interviewing for these types of roles?
Um, that's a good question, actually. I haven't. I would just be as far as resume design and I would research and look at what's happening now as far as and I'll definitely lean on AI because AI will help greatly. There's one. I mean, I think maybe the biggest mistake is not writing the resume to get through the software platforms that evaluate resumes within companies and weed resumes out just by what you're writing. So, and AI can help you with that. There's resume writing services that can help as well, that will help you get through that. There's actually software programs that'll help you run your resume through it, so it doesn't get weeded out in the first round. But I will say this: leaving out the networking element to it and the human element to it as well is also a mistake because I do see people coming out of the military and really people in all walks of life who are applying for trying to get into new careers and applying for jobs. If they're only using the electronic method of applying and not networking, not looking up other veterans at the company, helping, not doing things on LinkedIn, like simply, okay, I'm applying at XYZ company. Who else is a veteran at that company? You could look that up on LinkedIn and then network with them so then they can help you from the inside.
Yeah, somebody asked in the chat, they said, what does the career path look like in the marketing industry?
As far as when you say path, you mean as far as um, where what are the most lucrative positions or what because there's so many different ways you can take it in marketing. I find that the sales side of things is the most lucrative as well.
Mm,
There's a lot of jobs in marketing, especially the entry level jobs, where you'll work um, 60, 65, 70 hours a week for not a lot of money. And if you do choose that path, then have your sights set on starting your own marketing agency.
mm.
Because if you're going to go from same thing with PR and communications, it's if you're not going to be on the sales side of things and you're going to start with on the creative side of things, look to owning your own deal, within 10 years of getting into it, because or working your way up to partner in an existing agency.
Hmm. Yeah, so a lot of people are very against going like the sales route. I know sales has kind of a weird stigma to it to some people. What would you recommend to somebody that they want to stay away from sales, but they really like the other side of marketing?
Then just tap into your creative juices and go with it, and then you can be very you could make a lot of money that way as well. So the creative side of things is, you come up with concepts, you come up with things that are your intellectual property that you can sell, that people will pay for, or even creative director at agencies, very well-paying jobs, and you don't have to deal with the whole sales element to it, because someone at the agency will have to sell the concept, and then you come in and create it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Somebody's comment in the chat just made me laugh. They said like the Dr. Pepper girl. I feel like anybody could be in marketing if they just come up with one really good idea and then they go viral off of it. It's so like easy nowadays, I feel like to you could just do one thing and you could really get going off of that one thing. Speaking of
Yeah,
that, how much has sales and marketing changed in your long experience in it? I'm sure it's evolved like a lot. How is that kind of having to grow with that so much every year?
yeah, the change has been dramatic, and the two biggest things would be social media and the internet in general.
Yeah.
So, because social media platforms have evolved into major audience deliverers, so there's, somebody could have, I mean, just here in Boston, we have a local talent at iHeart who's got almost 800,000 followers on TikTok.
Wow.
So that's big. That's way bigger than her audience on the radio and on streaming. So I would say social media is the biggest thing. And that was born kind of out of the internet anyway. So first it was the internet, then it was social media, and it's
Yeah.
just how to capture the audience is really the biggest evolution that's taken place in marketing in general.
Yeah, yeah. How did the teams come up with new ways to capture the audience's attention? Is it just based off of trends, or how do you go about that?
Well, you have to have good ideas. You have to have good creativity. So if you're not going to be selling, then definitely be on the creative side of things. I would say that you have to come up with concepts that companies will be interested in. So you find, when it comes to social media, you find influencers that are a good fit for a company, and then you try to go down that road. So I would say always be educating yourself in the space, know the trends that are happening, and then know where the good fits are. Because essentially, what hasn't changed is the audience. There's always been an audience. It's just a question of how to reach that audience. Okay.
Yeah.
So, back in the day, and that whole phrase. Let me just age myself and tell everybody how wicked old I am, right? So, back in the day, there was only a handful of ways to reach an audience. TV was one way, just regular TV. Newspapers, print, billboards. The internet changed all that, so now there's a million different ways to reach audiences, and if you can get that audience to scale, a large audience, then you can make a major impact on a company's success.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. We have a few questions, so I'm gonna start calling on them. Peter, go ahead.
And Chris, thank you very much for coming out and talking with the team. Appreciate some of the tips that you've given us as far as for a resume and how to get that and them seen. A lot of us going through the transition period, we're going through our own difficulties. We're learning our own ways. I was curious, really, when you transition, what was one of the hardest parts for you? I know we've talked some of the identity, some of the hey, are we actually doing the imposter syndrome or what? Anything around those lines? I'd like to hear kind of what was something that you experienced that you weren't really expecting.
Well, one of the things was I was bored. I was because I had, I mean, I love fighter jets. I originally wanted to be a pilot, but that didn't work out. But I had so I got the next best thing. So I got a job as they called them a B shopper back then, but it was an instruments, automatic flight controls, on the F-15, and had a chance to go up for a couple of rides. Was on the flight line all the time. Um, you know, fixing the jets while the planes were running, like leaning over the pilot and trying not to drop a tool in his lap, so cancels the whole sortie, all that kind of stuff. Um, So that was pretty exciting job. Then you come into corporate America, and it's it's a little not as exhilarating, if you will. There's no loud jets buzzing by you every 2 seconds. No opportunity to go up and go inverted, 1,000 feet, 1,500 feet, over the ocean. So that was one of the things. And another thing was I was still young, so I didn't really know what I wanted to do because I didn't spend 20 years in the military. I only spent 4 years active duty and 3 years in the Guard. So it was a 7-year period. So I still wasn't fully developed as far as what I wanted to do. I kind of leaned one way and then you know it ended up working out. I ended up having a good career, but it was indecision at that point. So I was kind of exploring a lot of things. Another major thing, I'll mention this because especially it's actually gotten worse since COVID. So the camaraderie you feel while you're whether you're at basic training or whether you're in whether I'm in the first aircraft generation squadron at Tyndall Air Force Base or some other base elsewhere. There's always a camaraderie factor and always a go to a place factor. Execute your job and do it together, teamwork, that kind of stuff. That did exist in civilian jobs, but not to the intensity that you find in the military. So from that standpoint, that was one of the things I had to get used to. But then the other thing is, as soon as everybody started working from home, you walk around corporate America nowadays, and there's just empty office buildings and people who are in 2 or 3 days a week and working some days from home because, it was proven out that the productivity was still there, working from home, doing calls like this on Zoom with clients or and taking care of your business that way. So, I'm looking around the iHeartMedia offices right now here in Boston, and the office could probably accommodate 150 people, but there's probably 20 people here right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome question. Jose, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. For
Hi,
someone
Jose.
for someone that doesn't know what to do after retiring, how marketing or sales can be appealing, and what are good skills to have if wanting to pursue that field?
So sales and marketing are really they're intertwined, but they're two kind of different things, right? So first and foremost, I would decide or I would think about what do I want to do? Do I want to design concepts and programs that help bring a company to market so people then buy from that company? Or do I want to, which advertising is a part of, obviously, or do I want to sell to those companies, whether it's selling them advertising or selling them other things? So you really, try to pick out fields that have similar interest levels to the job that you're doing in the military. I know this. I know some of them are not going to be similar at all. But somebody had asked earlier, is recruitment a good foundation, and are the skills required for recruitment transitionable and translatable to civilian sales jobs? And the answer is yes to that. There's going to be a lot of jobs in the military that aren't unless you go to work for a military contractor. A lot of my friends in the military who got out of the military, who even stayed in and then retired, they went to work in the aerospace industry in general, whether it was Lockheed or Boeing. I've got some friends that still work at Boeing now that I was military contract work is another, whether it's BAE Systems, which is a big global company out of England, or Raytheon here in the United States. There's those things to look at as well. So don't discount those. But back to the question about sales and marketing. First, before going, you have to pick a road. Sales always sounds, like you had mentioned earlier about it being, there's a stigma that surrounds sales. But the bottom line is everybody has to sell. Whether you come out and start your own company and you start your own HVAC company, you still have to sell your services to your customers to use you. So sales never goes away. It's always part of every company in existence in a capitalistic society, right? So somebody has to sell it. And the skill set required for sales is there are some similarities, but much different than the skill set required for or that you need for marketing. Okay. Again, they're related, but they're separate at the same time.
Thank
And
you.
I do want to warn people of one thing. If if you're sitting there thinking sales is kind of cool, I want to try it, and then you don't like it, you're going to be miserable for a while because people who don't like it, it's one of those things that you don't really know what it's all about till you're in it, and then when you realize what it is when you're in it, you're like, oh my, this is not for me. There's nothing wrong with that, but I find a lot of people come into it because they just want to try it out because it sounds cool. You think, there's some perks to it. You're entertaining clients at a Red Sox game, or you're taking clients to dinner or what have you. But you're always beholden to the bottom line, and you always have sales goals. And the only way we can get those goals is a grind and a specific process by which you can make those numbers. And for some people, it's just not for them, and it's you end up being miserable for a while until you can figure something else out. So if you choose the sales route, make sure it's something that you know you want to do. And as far as the skill set for sales goes, it's you know it's sales is more than 50% intangible because, and in fact, as a sales manager and a leader, I mean, I would put it at 75 or 80%. 75 to 80% of what makes a successful salesperson in pretty much all industries is intangible. All right. And I started using this example when Kevin Garnett was on the Celtics. Doc Rivers, the coach of the Celtics, didn't teach Kevin Garnett to be 7 feet tall. He just was 7 feet tall. But he had to figure out how to use that skill set, how to use that asset. I could teach somebody how to use Microsoft Excel or whatever it is. I could teach them how to do an administrative task. That's only 20% of sales. Sales is mostly attitude, personality, um, never getting depressed when somebody says no because they say no more than they say yes in sales. So there's an emotional element to it. Um, if you're a baseball player and you hit the ball 3 out of 10 times, you're a successful hitter. You're batting 300. Sales is the same thing. If you make 3 out of 10 pitches, if you sold that, you'd be awesome in most industries. So it's kind of it's 80%, 75 to 80% intangible things. What is your makeup internally? What is your attitude internally? Do you bring a positive attitude? Do you have the drive? And then the manager or coach in that particular instance can point the drive in the right place or kind of point the attitude in the right place. But if you don't have that, it's like trying to turn ground beef into filet mignon. It's not possible.
That's a really good way of putting it, Chris. Very simple. Michelle, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chris. Thanks for being here. So you were at Comcast for nearly a decade before moving to iHeart. What
Yep.
inspired the change?
I was Comcast reorganizes the company every year. So the reason for the change was quite frankly, they did away with my position. So, and in New England, we had 8 Comcast advertising sales offices, and so I ran one of the offices, and then above us, above the office managers, there were layers upon layers of management. There were probably 6 people above us, and over the years, during like my first 6 years, those people got reorged out of the company. Till in 2025, there was nobody left between my level, somebody running an office, to a regional person. There was nobody left. So when they started reorganizing, all of us knew that there was going to be a shot. So consolidated and reorganization kind of eliminated my office. So I had to go find a new gig.
Alexis, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. So I'm trying to better understand the different roles. What do you think really separates an average account executive from someone who becomes a true strategic partner?
That's going to be all right. So an advertising account executive is somebody who approaches a company and sells them advertising, regardless of whether or not that advertising achieves an objective for the company. So before you sell them something, what separates the strategic partner versus just a typical advertising salesperson is you sit with a prospective client, ask them a lot of questions, educate yourself on their industry, find out what specifically they're trying to accomplish, and then design a program around that helps them achieve their business objectives. It's really about focusing on what the client needs are and then designing a program around that.
Yeah, really great questions, everybody. Eric, go ahead.
Hey Chris, I appreciate you being here and sharing some of this sales knowledge with the rest of us non-sale knowledge people. It's inspiring. However, my question is, how do you think companies can better support veterans as they move into corporate roles like sales and media?
I think that and when I was at Comcast, we had a very active veterans outreach program. I think that companies can better serve the veterans coming out of the military and into civilian life would be to develop their internal veteran outreach programs, like really like similar to one of the ones that Comcast had. We had one of the best ones in the country, I think. In fact, I did a bunch of job fairs at Fenway Park that Comcast put on. But there's somebody in charge of veteran outreach at the company. So, I mean, I think I would look towards corporations that have a highly developed veteran outreach program in place, and then probably start there first and network them. There's a lot of them are on LinkedIn. Connect with them, and a lot of them will assist in that way.
Chris, how are you able to tell the difference between a really truly veteran friendly company and one that might just be saying that? Because some will just say that to have that tag. How can you really tell someone that's veteran friendly?
If I was coming out of the military, what I would do is I'd probably contact somebody within the company who is a veteran and ask them, because it's really the only way. And that's a very good question, because companies say they do one thing, right? But unless you get in and you lift up the hood, and the only way you can lift up the hood is if you get in there and you ask somebody about it. But once you lift up the hood, you can figure out which ones are superficial and which ones are serious about it. So I would probably, I use LinkedIn for a lot. So I would probably use LinkedIn, track down the veterans in the company, especially the ones that have higher up positions, and actually speak to somebody new who came out of the military and just got a job there, and get their perspectives on whether or not the company has a serious veteran initiative.
Yeah, awesome. Jose, go ahead.
I'm back.
What's up, Jose?
Thinking about growth, what's one lesson from your own journey that really stuck with you, have helped you shape the way you work now?
You're always you're gonna have a mentor. Okay, everybody. I feel like everybody has a mentor, and I've been lucky to have. I had a great mentor when I first got in, and when I first got out of the military and into corporate life, I guess. I had a mentor, and it was a no-nonsense person, taught me a bunch of things about integrity. Didn't settle for, accountability was a big thing as well. Accountable for your failures, for your successes, pointing out certain things that could help put my own naturally occurring drive in motion in the right place. So I would say, to answer that question, Jose, I would say when you do land someplace, a mentor is going to be important.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Nick, what's up?
What's up? Hey, Chris, thanks for coming on. Appreciate you. Just a quick question for you. Trying to get your feedback on, jumping into startup companies versus, something that's already well established, right? There's like risk there, but there's also opportunity.
I have a wife and 50 kids, it feels like at times, but I'm trying to jump into stability, but I'm also like, hey, maybe there's an option for a startup company and trying to just learn that way. What's your take on that?
Startups are the thing I love about startups is usually when you get in early, you get a piece of the company as well. So when the company succeeds and either gets bought out by somebody else or just grows or goes public or something like that, you stand to make a pretty hefty payday. Um, but there's risk involved, and I totally understand the trepidation with having a wife and kids and trying to look for stability as well. So I think that from a startup perspective, that's a real good question. I haven't thought about it that much. I would probably lean towards obviously something that's in an exploding industry or something that's about to explode, but maybe one that's been around a couple of years and is close to profitability. So I would say, ask questions like, because there's so many startups that raise so much venture capital money to fund it that never make a profit and then end up either getting bought up by somebody else, which happens a lot. So, make sure that maybe it's not something that's starting up in somebody's garage, and you don't know where the food's coming to feed the 50 kids, but something's been around for a couple of years, still new, still considered startup, and how far away from profitability are they?
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome question, Nick. Where do you see the biggest opportunities in the media space here in the next few years? Do you think it's going to be a different part than it is now?
I think the next few years, the biggest opportunity is in an area called connected television. Okay, for at least at least the next 5 years. And what connected television is, and I'm sure there's plenty of people on this call that already consume it, is any content that is delivered to your home smart TV via an internet connection, not cable, not satellite, not rabbit ears. I mean, there's still 1% of the population who watches TV with the antennas, but anybody who is consuming, because the fastest growing segment of advertising is CTV, connected television, and it's and within that space, there's something called FAST, free ad-supported television. So things like I don't know if you have a Roku and you look at your Roku menu, there's plenty of options where you can watch uh, free content with commercials in it. So that's probably the fastest growing.
Okay. Why? Why do you think that's the fastest growing? I didn't catch that part. Like, what about that is gonna keep getting bigger?
Well, because it's accessible to everybody. If let's say you have a cable package at your house. Now, there's also a phenomenon that's happening within that, which I'll talk about in a second. But if you have cable television, all right, and you are getting a premium package there, but then they also make you buy that bundle where it's cable, phone, and internet. So now you're spending, probably near $300 a month on your entertainment bill. That's if you don't have home security with them. So people are looking for more inexpensive ways. Now, on the surface, it does look more inexpensive.
Mhm.
However, what we're finding now is, which is the reason why free ad-supported television is growing so fast, is let's say you got rid of your cable and you lived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. If you're a sports fan, there's all kinds of problems with getting rid of cable because you might go to YouTube TV or you might go to Hulu, but you don't get your hometown games, or you don't get live sports, or you don't, you have the ESPN Plus, but that's all the out of town games. I mean, so there's all kinds of parameters that come into play where people then, or they have to buy multiple streaming services in order to get everything they want. And the next thing you know, their bill is the same as what their cable bill used to be. So they might as well have just kept cable. So that's why within the streaming space, initially it was growing completely, like gangbusters because of the price. But now it's now within that free ad supported television is the biggest growth part.
Okay, that makes sense. In your career, it's kind of built around relationship building. Sounds like as you've described. How do you keep those relationships genuine? Like obviously you're trying to make a sale or you're trying to get something marketed, but how do you get that genuine relationship built with people?
That's always a very interesting question because, and the reason why I mention it as being interesting is because you're asking, the question is, how do you keep the relationship genuine, right?
Hmm.
But then the answer sounds like you're manufacturing a way to keep something genuine. So it's kind of weird. So it has to naturally flow. So I would say that, it's all in the person. Never hide the fact that you're selling somebody something. Okay. So that's not hidden. Don't beat around the bush. Be very direct and honest with the communication. But also, don't only talk to that person when you're trying to sell them something. And
Mm,
then also over time, it's not an easy thing to build a relationship, an actual relationship. But over time, there's things that you'll find out about somebody. Maybe they just had a kid. Maybe they are into NASCAR. They like, whatever it might be. And you find out this information about them. You communicate in an honest way where you don't sound like you're not trying to sell them something when you are. Okay. And then over time, that relationship builds because the trust builds. So you have to build trust from a sales standpoint and from a non-sales standpoint,
yeah,
and then that's how you foster that relationship. But
yeah.
it's a great question because you're literally, because I do know a lot of people who um, try to do that, but they sound like they're manufacturing it at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I asked because I ran into that as well, where you can tell they're really trying to be genuine about it and they have a good heart for it, but it's just it comes across in just a wrong way. So I was curious on your perspective on it. Well, I just
And
have one last. Oh, go ahead.
no, I'll just give you a quick example. So I was managing a
Yeah.
sales rep. I was managing a sales rep. He was from Indiana. He moved to Boston. He was an all-state wrestler, and one of his advertising agency clients had a son who was just getting into wrestling. So they kind of bonded on this wrestling thing. But I'd hear him call the guy, and he'd call him up and he'd say, "Hey, how did your son's wrestling meet go over the weekend? I was going to try to get there, but I couldn't make it or whatever." And the client would answer the question about the son's wrestling match, and then he'd be right on. "Hey, you want to take a look at this Red Sox package?" Like all at the same time. So it's like if you're going to call him and ask him about the kid's wrestling match, do that in a separate call. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. A lot of people on here have talked about not exactly the same thing, but reaching out via LinkedIn and making those connections is almost a little weird to start out because it's not normal for us to reach out to strangers and try to connect with them. What do you suggest
Mhm.
for getting more comfortable with that kind of stuff?
Yeah, just it's kind of a way of life in business now, so nobody really thinks it's that awkward as long as it's, you stop short of stalking them. It's like some people will overuse it and to send too many messages and too many calls or whatever. But if you reach out to somebody and you have a compelling reason that, why you're reaching out,
Yeah,
most people it's kind of like a routine thing now. Some people are going to ignore it, not even respond, and that's just it is what it is. The other thing is reach out to a lot of veterans who are already in the workforce because that'll you know that kind of camaraderie, that connection will kind of take away a lot of the awkwardness. But usually it's not awkward because it's people expect that. That's what LinkedIn is.
okay. Yeah, good to know. I know I felt a little bit weird starting out, so hopefully that answer helped somebody. Keon asked in the chat, he said, with so many different streaming platforms, when do you predict that the fragmentation will hit its peak and go back to an all-in-one package?
I think probably in the next 5 years. It's starting to hit its peak now.
Wow.
So I'd say soon because we're actually seeing a slowdown, at least when I left Comcast, in people cutting the cord from cable.
Mm.
So from 2015 to 2025 or 24, about 600,000 cable subscribers in Boston um, cut the cord over that 9-year period. And then right around 24, a slowdown in that started to happen. I'm not sure if that's happening across the country, but that's definitely going to happen without question.
Do you think it will ever come
And
back again like it is right now?
Well, that's the reason why you see companies like Spectrum, Comcast, Cox, they're kind of embracing that whole thing. So if you happen to be a Comcast customer, you'll notice that in the X1 cable box, a lot of the streaming platforms, there's probably at least 15 of them are aggregated in one page, so you can access them right from your cable box. So it's kind of already happening, but it's still 5 years might be quick, but I think it's going to be 5 years. You'll see that they're going to have to figure it out because it's what's happening is the people who cut the cord are realizing that in order to get all the entertainment that they wanted from all these streaming platforms, you have to stack them. You have to buy multiple platforms.
Yeah.
But then the other funny thing is you buy something for one show and then you won't go back to that platform for months, right? Like you might have
Yep.
had a favorite show on Hulu and then you try to think, okay, I watched all the episodes. I haven't been on Hulu in 4 months. So
Yeah. Yeah, exactly that. I can think of an embarrassing amount of times that I have done that. Jose, go ahead.
So do you think that's why like now the streaming platforms are creating bundles as well and also offering like the commercial to lower the how much the expensive are now like the streaming services.
yeah,
With that, you think that the cable companies are gonna come to an end?
I don't think they're going to come to an end, but I don't know if they'll ever enjoy the market dominance that they did in years past. So, and then the other thing is, take YouTube TV for example. If you're in Boston, you buy Prime, like their Prime live TV package, and each market is different, it has its own idiosyncrasies. There's a regional cable network in Boston called Nesson that carry the Red Sox and Bruins. So even if you buy YouTube TV and get all the NFL games that you want, because they're on CBS and Fox, Nesson's not on YouTube TV or Hulu as far as the games go. So you won't if you're a Red Sox fan, you're going to need YouTube TV and you're going to need to buy Nesson 360. So it's all going to shake out and you'll see some consolidation. But Jose, you're exactly right. That's why you see the bundle options, and it's starting to happen right now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Keon, did you have another question? I saw your hand up for a sec.
Yeah, so my question was kind of related to the question in the chat. Like, I know people are cutting the cable to buy the different streaming platforms, but I'm saying it's so many streaming platforms, like you mentioned, Chris, when will that dwindle into like more bundles where you can get everything? Because it's hard to even figure out where things are being shown at to where you just like, I'll just check the internet, check the scores or whatever, watch the YouTube highlights of whatever happened in that show or game, because you can barely keep up with where to watch it at.
I think that it's 2024 and then 2025, but even towards the end of 2025 and now in 2026, I'm hearing it's happening right now. It is. So, I think that you'll see over the next 5 to 10 years a streamlined way to go about it. You have to. It's the only way. It's the only way it's gonna survive. There's a lot of platforms that don't have many viewers that are gonna just go by the wayside. But to your point about the you can't even find where it's on unless some of the games are on Apple TV, some of the games are on you've noticed this year both on Paramount Plus and on Peacock. It used to be some of the games were on the regular TV network, and some of the games, a handful of games would be on Paramount Plus, or a handful of programming on Paramount Plus or Peacock. Now they're on the same time. Okay, you can watch the same game. You can watch the Super Bowl on NBC and Peacock the other day, right? So before, when sports started going streaming, it wasn't either or. Like I watched the Grammy Awards, I could have watched it on Paramount Plus or on CBS. So I think it's already happening now. It's just gonna take some time for them to figure out the exact streamlined way that it's best for the viewer. And then the other thing is there's other quirks about the streaming broadcasts that are annoying audiences. Amazon Prime, for example, on Thursday Night Football has a technology issue where, there's, I mean, they've had all kinds of problems in different markets with it. Hulu, I remember Game 7 of the Celtics Heat was the fourth quarter just went black on, the screen went black on Hulu, and the whole fourth quarter was was not seen. I remember, even like 8 years ago, the second half of a Super Bowl was missed on Hulu. So there's all kinds of technological issues as well.
Yeah, that's insane.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I just have one last question for you, Chris. I'd like to know, what's a mindset that you've had throughout your career that's really helped you be successful that these guys might be able to take into their next career?
Always trust yourself and don't pay attention to the noise around you and I find this to be more in corporate America than when I was in the Air Force. There's a lot of in a population of a workforce, there's a lot of chatter, a lot of negativity, if you will. They'll take one element that might be negative about an overall plan of a company and then just harp on that as a reason to be miserable. Just stay away from that. Just, you capitalize on your own attitude, your own drive, your own integrity, and do what you're supposed to do to be successful, and don't get influenced by bad actors and negative attitude around you.
Yeah, yeah, amazing advice. John, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do have a question. So, I was just wondering, what would you say you would say is your advice for someone who's only done like one job and they're kind of not sure how they would transition into a different kind of career entering the civilian force?
So are you in cybersecurity right now?
Yeah, all of my time in the military has been in IT cybersecurity.
Okay. And you don't want to do that when you get out.
I'm thinking about some other things, but I don't know how I would even start doing anything else.
Well, that's the other thing. So it's real tough to make a change. So how long have you been in the doing cybersecurity? How long have you been working on that?
6 years IT
Okay.
cybersecurity.
So you got 6 years under your belt there. It requires introspection. Look inside yourself and kind of match up what your interests are. I mean, I can barely answer that question for myself, right? So, if I had to do something else right now, I'd probably it would take me a while to figure it out. Luckily, you're young enough where you can figure out if there are other. But cybersecurity is an amazing industry in and of itself. There's so many cybersecurity companies out there. In fact, my wife actually works in cybersecurity for a company called Mimecast, and I happen to overhear a a meeting that she was having, and the guy that was the head of cybersecurity for this major packaged goods corporation used to be that for the Air Force. But if you're looking at something other than cybersecurity, the only thing I can tell you is really look inside yourself and figure out, what's a good fit for your likes and your dislikes. And even if you have no idea, maybe even talk to a career counselor,
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, really good question, John. Well, thank you so much, Chris. This was really awesome. We don't hear a lot from advertising and marketing fields, so it's really good to get your insight on some stuff. So thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate
Yeah.
it. Good luck, everybody.
Yeah, have a great rest of your week.